Welcome back, StarCraft connoisseurs, and to this game between JH and GanGstEr Jose on StarCraft fastest map, the space version. This game was played for SCBW StarCraft World, the 1 vs 1 ladder, the only 1 vs 1 fastest map ladder in the world. And this game is, as I have already mentioned before, between Jose, who's playing the white Protoss, up against JH, who's playing the purple Terran. And he's on the middle top spot, whereas Jose is on the bottom side corner, on the right bottom side corner, and he is sending out a probe at 7-9. So he's going for the mid build. Jose is known to pretty much always go for the mid build, whether he's a mid spot, a corner spot. He always goes for the mid build, and there's the pylon 8-9, and he's going to scout this first spot here on the bottom. He places the pylon right here at the exit of his entrance, because going a little bit further would cost him way too much time, and he will lose time on the starting point of producing his first gateway and also his zealots, which would put him at a disadvantage actually for doing a mid build, because your units would be out way too late, and the Terran would have sufficient units and probably a bunker out also to fight it off. And JH starting off with the barracks into a depot, into a barracks, and I don't think we might be seeing a 3-barrack build. Maybe he's doing a 3-barrack build. There is the SCV for the 3rd barracks with a 3-barrack build, and there is the 3-gateway build for Jose on the middle. And Jose now sending out his 2nd probe to scout with 2 probes at the same time. He's going to scout the side spots with that one, and he's not scouting this spot yet. He's going to use zealots for that. But I think he will find JH with this probe here before this first zealot finishes, and JH is already scouting as well. He finds the probe, so he knows that his opponent will be Protoss once he sees that probe. No, he sees the probe here. He's only scouting the chokes because he knows that Jose will either have a probe up at his choke, a pylon up at his choke, or a mid build. So he's scouting pretty much very close to the middle, so he knows where Jose is. And he sees that it's a mid build. 3 barracks almost finished. He has scouted the mid build. And JH is known to be a very good micro control player compared to most Western players, because he is a Korean player, Jose is a Peruvian player. And the first fight is about to happen. JH is just running away as of yet, and the fight starts, and Jose pulls back as he realizes that he doesn't have enough zealots to fight against these Marines. One more zealot has joined the fray, and now he's going back in, chasing JH Marines off. JH throwing down a bunker as point to micro around and put units in to protect them, making it significantly harder for Jose to get a cannon push started. But Jose started his cannon push all the way up in the choke of JH, which is actually pretty far away, and it's going to take him a lot of time to push JH into his base, starting all the way down there. And JH now showing and displaying his really good micro, managing to deal a lot of damage to the zealots of Jose without even taking a single hit on his Marines. And JH, it looks like Jose didn't even start cannons. He didn't even have his forge finished, in fact. I thought it was a cannon that was making there, but instead he made 2 pylons. So he is definitely not going to be able to go for a cannon push. He's just going to... It's pretty much a completely botched mid build from Jose at this point, because there's no way he can get the leverage on JH at this point, as JH is the bunker there and has had a 3-barrack pump up for quite a while, and there's a academy that is finished too. He doesn't have stim upgrade yet, but there are medics coming out right now. He will upgrade his stim once he has sufficient gas for it. In the back, he's making a factory just in case the cannon push had been started earlier, but the cannon push has only just now started. So he will have that tank up way before the cannons will even reach this point right about here. And the cannons are now coming down. JH snipes the probe. Really, really poor awareness from Jose there. And really good awareness from JH there, being very proactive with his movements. And Jose decides not to attack the bunker, although I do think he had enough units to go in there and take down the bunker and potentially get a surround on those Marines. He's now spreading up his zealots, and he is regrouping them. I really think this is a missed opportunity for Jose, as he could have spread up and gotten behind those JH Marines and cut them out. Because JH is playing this quite aggressively, constantly moving his Marines away from safety to get a little bit of damage in on Jose. And Jose is right now just balling up his zealots. His middle has at this point completely failed, and he's just throwing down a couple of cannons here to buy himself time for the scenario where JH wants to push out. So it would give him some time to build his base, as here he has started 2 nexus to help him boost his economy up, although I think that's a bug. Oh no, it's a process for building a probe. Never mind. And more marines have been finished, and there is the siege mode being researched, and a tank is being produced in the back. It's a turret also being placed in the back, just in the case that Jose would have gone for a Templar cheese, which is quite likely in the case from JH, because JH hasn't really been feeling that pressure from Jose, so it's safe to assume that he was making Dark Templars, but there are no Dark Templars out on the map. There's not even a Citadel of Dune or a Cybernetics Core on the map for Jose. Jose is still committing to the very slow cannon push at this point, which I think is a lost cause. He has to tech switch into something else, go for the bigger economy. There's the Cybernetics Core, and he decides to pull his zealots back as the tank is firing down on the cannons. This means that JH now has the window to push out very slowly, and the pressure is now, instead of on Jose, the pressure is now flipped onto Jose. I mean, instead of being on JH, it's now on Jose. It's a tongue twister to pronounce names starting with the J and the H, and the Jose being pronounced as a H. It's pretty tough stuff. But anyway, still on 3 gateways. He now hasn't added on any of his tech yet. There is the first Citadel of Dune. He's going for the Zealot Speed and the Storms, most likely. That's quite a smart choice, although I would have liked to see him go for the drops. If he were to be able to hit a drop, it could completely set JH back, but JH preemptively throwing down turrets around his base. He doesn't have any side vision yet. JH is just balling up, his units massing up and getting bigger and bigger, whereas Jose is just trying to build his base up really, really quickly. But I am not sure if he'll have enough time for that, because JH is already almost completely pushed out of his base. There is another turret for the anti-DT cheese, but there are no DTs coming out. And there's a Citadel of Dune. Zealot legs are being researched. He's completely going to commit to building a huge Zealot army to fight off whatever JH is going to throw at him. And JH is still ahead in Psy in supply, but I think Jose will catch up in Psy quite soon, because he has a triple nexus pump going on, and he's slowly adding on more gateways. There's a pylon to build a choke, so he's gonna build some cannons there to buy himself some time in the case that JH decides to attack. But it looks like JH is going for a rather defensive build. He hasn't used his scans yet, so he doesn't know where where Jose is. There's a bunker. The SCBW building that bunker died. Jose decides not to attack. That would have been a really nice timing to attack, just to get those tanks down and buy himself some additional time and slow JH down by forcing him to wait on more tanks. But instead he regroups on the middle, putting all his units into a little ball, and JH is now choking up, walling off his front with bunkers. And I assume he's going to put some firebats in those bunkers. Firebats and bunkers really make quick work of zealots, as the zealots will really, really quickly die to that stacked up firebat damage. No, he decides not to go for that. Instead, he goes for the very slow build-up of his base, building up his economy, getting his gas going. And yeah, he's going to add a lot more factories in this little portion here. He's probably going to take down that bunker because it's blocking his Sim City. And he's really, really expecting the drops from Jose. But Jose has not even started his drop tech yet. He doesn't even have a robotic facility. He's completely committing to just upgrading his ground force and going for a counterattack, but JH wants nothing of that. JH completely believes in the drop, and he's throwing out the scan. Where did he scan? He scanned them. I didn't see where he scanned. I missed it. I'm completely sorry for that one. I assume he scanned the middle here to see what Jose was up to. Jose, in the meantime, has split up his units on the middle and is still adding on a lot more gateways, and is now ramping up his production as his Psy is slowly growing. His economy is quite big now, as he has those triple nexuses feeding him probes to put on his gas and onto his minerals. There is a storm being upgraded. Is there a Templar coming out? There are 2 Templars being produced, and there is still no robotic facility. No robotic facility out yet for Jose. Jose really not going for the drops, but in my honest opinion, it might actually be a smart choice not to go for drops just yet. You might want to wait for JH to be drawn out of his base, because JH is a really good camper. And although he doesn't have any vision of the sides yet, here he has an engineering bay flying on the side to extend the vision and increase his reaction time to drops flying in from the sides. I'd really like to see some of them here, but I'm sure that he will lift up these barracks once he has sufficient starports and factories inside his base to facilitate a sufficient production rate to replenish his units. He is sending out Marines to all spots to scout where Jose could be. But these Marines are going to walk into Zealots and Dragoons and get taken down before he can even get past the halfway point of the middle section. So he will get vision of these side spots, and these Marines might actually be really useful for getting vision of this section here as anti-drop. But we just have to wait and see what it's going to do. And there is a science facility almost being finished. And Jose's base, in the meantime, has grown quite large. Might be seeing more gateways on this part here. Yeah, there's the gateway. Oh, there's a cannon being thrown down. So there's a huge empty space where we won't be seeing any gateways. He's really going hard on that anti-drop, because JH is known for utilizing tank drops really well in every single situation that he can to hit your minerals and slow you down and just mess you up completely. But in this specific case, JH is not going for the tank drop. He is just happily building, adding on factories, and now he has lifted off his barracks for getting extra side vision. He doesn't have vision of the gas of another spot, so I assume he's going to rely on using scans for the drop dodge. There he has 4 armories, all upgrades being researched for ground and for air and ground. Just throwing everything out all at the same time. He's already almost on 200 supply before Jose managed to hit 200 supply, and Jose is here, is now throwing down an expo. He's going to throw down a lot of gateways or carriers here. Stargates here for carriers. We just have to wait and see what he's going to do. Now he does have the drop tag, but no shuttles are out yet. There is a Stargate, and he's researching air upgrades. So yes, he is probably planning on, if he manages to buy himself enough time, to go for carriers. But JH is not planning on giving Jose any time at all. He pushes out immediately before the cannons on the middle can go down. What the cannons do finish, but the Marines will probably stun them down really quickly. And there are 2 Templars out, and the Templars are not storming, but the Templars don't have. They did have energy, in fact, but Jose forgets he sent them out there and doesn't get a storm off, and all the cannons on the middle now going down very quickly. More tanks being produced to replenish the lost Marines and the lost tanks on the middle, and the pressure is now really completely and wholly on Jose. Jose probably doesn't look like Jose has enough gateways out yet to fight this off, and neither does he have. He's throwing out gateways on the side here, so we won't be seeing carriers, because the pressure on Jose is simply too great for him to transition into carriers. Because if he were to transition into carriers, it would take him way too much time to get them out, and JH would have already run down his base by that time. So he's going to go for the flank by making an expo of gateways there. And they're going to just happily firing away. JH flying command centers over his main command center to protect it from Jose being able to click on it with carriers or whatever else. Although it also prevents him from clicking on it himself to repair it. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword. Most of the time it works in your advantage, but sometimes the enemy can get damage onto that main CC and take it down, and you will still end up losing it. But it is worth trying regardless, because it makes it harder for the Protoss to focus it down. And now JH pushing in. Jose going for the counterattack. He's got a lot of Templars, and there is the first storm, there's the second storm, and an EMP comes down, but he hits the Templars that already used their storm, so he will mostly get all of these storms off. And more storms are going to come down on the tanks, but there are way too many tanks for a ground army to push into and repel. So JH keeps most of his tanks are still alive. He's almost already back on 200 supply, and this expo here has to start producing units really, really quickly to get that flank off. But the pressure is on JH, on Jose, so heavily that his minerals are actually quite low, which might be a result of not having enough probes out, or maybe building too many things at the same time. But it looks like JH won't be able to be stopped by Jose at this point. Jose is in a really tight and bad position, as more Goliaths now even, and tanks are rolling out of JH base. JH really ramping up that production really quickly, and even here an expo is being built. But there are so many tanks that Jose might not get that flank off in time, as more units are rolling in and making it harder and harder. The more units JH has in his little corner, the harder and the harder it becomes for Jose to kill these units and get that flank off successfully. And JH now scanning all the spots. He scanned the expos, I assume. I should have really clicked on that to see if he did or if he didn't. And Jose now sending out his units and gets a really nice surround on the tanks on the middle, in the middle of his choke. But there are so many tanks behind it, unsieged and sieged, that the zealots in the front are taking so much damage that they will fall down really quickly, and the dragoons are doing much work either. And that wave of units have been successfully repelled by JH, but Jose also bought himself a little bit of time to rebuild his mass by sending that entire mass out, although JH already has taken over Jose's choke again. Units be here on the side, but that's definitely not enough units to get a successful flank off. And Jose now losing pylons and gateways, making it harder for him to produce from his main base. And tanks rolling in, not even sieging as of yet, just happily flying out. And this is a lot of buildings hovering around around JH base. And I don't see Jose making a comeback from this. Is he going to go for the counterattack or going for the flank? He's going for the counterattack, but I don't think he will have enough units to go for it to do any real damage with a counterattack, because there are still a lot of tanks and Goliaths inside of JH base. And JH will also be able to pull these units back to the base. He does get inside the base, but there is a nice little block going on in between the factories, preventing the zealots from really getting in there. And only the superficial layer of tanks is going down to the zealots. And the tanks have sieged. A lot of these zealots are actually... The Dragoon zealots are actually taking down a lot of these tanks, actually more than I expected them to. As the tanks in the back were in siege, the tanks in the front were siege, so the tanks in the front weren't able to fire on anything but the Dragoons all the way in the back, or on their own tanks in the back of his own line of units. But this base is very quickly dying and falling down. Now would actually be a really good time for Jose to get a flank off, because JH pulled so many of his units back to save his own base. And Zealous already penetrated all the way in the back of JH base, very close to his main CC. But all of these, the units that he pulled back wind up being sufficient to save his base. And now he has lost his probes actually, so he can't even get a flank off anymore, because if he were to send a flank, he wouldn't have any income left to even survive whatever JH would throw at him afterwards. And I think Jose realizes now that the game should be lost. He's throwing out his last batch of minerals into getting some more units out onto the middle for an attack on JH base, but JH has already replenished his entire mass and has got a lot of tanks and Goliaths at his front with 1-1 upgrades. And Jose, who does have 2-1-2 upgrades, might be able to get a slight overhand. But once he has a single wave of units out, yeah, this is definitely not enough. There's too many Dragoons, too little Zealots. The Zealots won't be able to penetrate all the way in, and JH also uses the EMPs. And Jose, losing his last vestige of units, doesn't even call the GG, leaves the game, and JH wins. And that was somewhat of an action-packed game, but also a game of a lot of mistakes and wrong assumptions on both sides. But all these things ended up being in favor of JH, who just kept rolling, kept on building, kept on getting bigger, and became a bigger threat than Jose could deal with. And it's all because of a botched mid-build at the start that completely failed to do any damage at all. And that's the downside of doing a mid-build. With a mid-build, you have to deal damage. And if you don't deal damage, the Terran will be able to just rebound. Or if they don't take any damage at all, they'll just happily build as they would have always done. And because you pull so many probes off so early and you build in the middle, so far away from your base, your economy as a Protoss is really hurting. And you cannot afford to let the Terran get that big undamaged, unhurt. Because it's a race against the clock, and Terran will always win the ground game because of tanks and mech. And this is the result. A Terran win, a Protoss loss. Thanks for watching.